Kazuhito was a depressed loner so obsessed with books that he begged the plot gods to isekai him as a dog when he died. He somehow forms a telepathic connection with his favorite author, who adopted him. However, he soon learns she is a scissors-obsessed psychopath, ready to make his life a living hell. Kazuhito was sitting in a cafe and had just finished reading the latest book by his favorite author, Akiyama Shinobu. When he heard a commotion, he looked up and saw a man in a hoodie holding the waiter at gunpoint, demanding money. The man noticed him and demanded he, along with the only other customer, stand up, which he did. But the girl in glasses was so focused on what she was writing that she didn't respond to Robert Kuhn's demands. The gunman pointed the gun at her and tried to shoot, but Kazuhito decided to play the hero and jumped in front of her. As he struggled with the man for the gun, it went off and grazed his leg, but he pushed him to the ground and kept trying to take the gun away. The man managed to push him off, and since his plot armor wasn't as solid as he thought, the man shot him in the head. Kazuhito found himself floating away as his life flashed before his eyes while he tried to accept that he was dead. When he saw his book collection, he started struggling to go back because he still had books he wanted to read. The last book in the Deadly Sin series from his favorite author came last, and he tried to grab onto it, determined not to die without reading the book. As soon as he touched it, he saw a dog and got sucked into it. And when next he opened his eyes, he saw a man with an afro. The man referred to him as a dog and went to get in water, and Kazuhito couldn't contain his joy when he realized he was alive and would be able to read. He then wondered why the man kept calling him a dog until he noticed a dog in the mirror. He remembered it as the dog he'd seen before waking up and trying to reach out, only to discover he had a paw. That was when it dawned on him that he had reincarnated as a freaking dog. Staying without books had pushed Kazuhito to the brink of madness, and as he lay in his cage, all he could think of was how much he wanted to read. As he kept repeating the name of his favorite author, the door to the shop burst open, and a girl with black hair stepped in. As she walked through the shop, all the animals trembled in fear, almost as if a predator had walked in. When she got to the counter, she ignored the Afro man and asked Kazuhito if he had been the one to call for her, making him wonder if she was a pot addict off her usual dose. She straightened her back and asked the man how much the dog cost, but he told her it wasn't for sale. The girl didn't say anything else but took out a pair of scissors from the holster, strapped to her thigh, and cut open the cage, shocking the man and Kazuhito. Later on, as Kazuhito struggled to get free from the ropes she tied him up with, the girl brandished her scissors like a knife and threatened to cut him up if he did not shut up. She then revealed that she could hear his thoughts, which made him shout in surprise. He asked how it was possible, and she explained that she'd been hearing a voice in her head for a week, so she traced it and ended up in the pet shop. She introduced herself as Natsuno Kuriheim and gave him her body measurements from head to toe. Kazuhito took one look at her almost invisible plots after she called it a 92 and thought she was delusional. Kazuhito later realized she was the girl from the cafe, and he told her what happened after the incident. After listening to him, Natsuno clenched her fists and walked away, leaving him tied up in the room. She took a shower and returned to the room in only Lingari, and proceeded to ask if seeing her dressed like that had his mind racing with wicked thoughts. But Kazuhito told her that even if he were still human, he'd never look at her twice. Feeling insulted, she tried to cut him, but instead she cut the rope to hold him up instead. She then told him he could stay and asked if he wanted anything, so he told her he wanted books. Natsuno then took him to her library, and as he explored, she asked why he had been calling out her name in the pet shop. Kazuhito told her that he had called the name of Akiyama Shinobu, and she said it was her name. Natsuno explained that Akiyama was her pen name, shocking the life out of him. From that day on, he started living with her and didn't think of his former life until one day he saw on the news that his killer was still at large, making him feel sad. Natsuno noticed the sulking, depressed dog, so the next day, she told him they were going out. The two of them left the building and headed to a mall, and while they walked about, they came across the pet store owner, who cowered in fear at the sight of Kuriheim. They continued on their way and passed by a blonde girl, who thought the mall was a fashion runway, but Natsuno ignored her like she was an NPC. Next, they passed by Kazuhito's favorite bookstore, and when she noticed the longing in his eyes, she asked if he wanted to go in, but he said no, so they continued on their way. When they arrived at their destination, Kazuhito realized it was his old residence and asked why they had come, so Natsuno told him they had a score to settle and walked into the building. When they got inside, Natsuno told Kazuhito that she suspected his killer was hiding in the building. She said it was public knowledge that no one apart from him lived in the building, so it would make sense that the man was hiding there. As they talked, they heard a sound, and when they went to check, they saw a man walk out of one of the rooms, and Kazuhito recognized him as the man who shot him. The man took off running, but when he got to a bridge, he stopped running and turned around. Natsuno told him to surrender, but he said he couldn't be caught yet and tried to attack her. She dodged and punched him, but got hurt instead, so he used the opportunity to strike her and send her flying. When she stood up, he pulled out two of the Deadly Sins novels, which made Kazuhito point out that he must have hidden the remaining 4 in his clothes, which was why Natsuno had hurt her hand. Natsuno charged at him, but he dodged her punches and threw his own, and as they fought, Kazuhito realized he was using moves from her books. The fight continued, and some books he had hidden in his clothes fell to the floor, and that's when he realized Natsuno had let him hit her so she could secretly slash his clothes. Natsuno kicked the books in his hands to the floor before pulling out her scissors and cutting the remaining books out of his clothes. The man rushed at her, but she high-kicked him, and he landed on the edge of the bridge before he passed out. Kazuhito approached her and asked if she was okay, but instead of answering, she looked at the man and told Kazuhito to use the chance to take his revenge. But he approached the man and pulled him down. Natsuno asked why he was helping the man who killed him, and he told her that he bore no grudge against the man. So Natsuno said she'd do it instead, saying she had to make up for causing his death. That was when Kazuhito realized she had been blaming herself for his death. So he told her it wasn't her fault, but she argued that if she hadn't been focused on her book, he'd still be alive. He tried to convince her that it wasn't her fault, but she refused to listen. So he jumped and pushed her down before saying he saved her because he wanted to. That night, as they walked home, Natsuno told Kazuhito she felt motivated to continue her book, but Kazuhito suddenly remembered they didn't lock up his room. When he started running back, she asked why, and he said he didn't want anyone stealing his precious books because they were his children. Hearing this, the crazy woman started wondering if people would talk if she developed plot with a dog, which made Kazuhito conclude that she belonged in a straitjacket. The next day, Kazuhito woke up to find a gray-haired woman lying on the table and wondered who she was and how she got into the house. He approached her, but noticed she was laughing. Then she suddenly got up like someone who'd been possessed and started asking him questions. He thought she could understand him until he realized she was quoting lines from an anime like an obsessed otaku. As he watched her version of a battle, he wondered if Natsuno would go crazy when she saw her, but when she came in, the lady referred to her as Sensei and sat down. Natsuno pushed a card toward him, and when he read it, he discovered that the crazy lady was Hiiraji Suzumina, Akiyama's editor. While he watched them, Natsuno asked if she'd read the manuscript she had sent, and Suzumina said it was completely trash. Natsuno admitted that she had been in a slump, and it was affecting her work, so Suzuma suggested she try doing something new, but she said she wasn't interested. Suzuma then suggested she get her plots enlarged, saying hers were too flat to attract any attention to her. Kazuhito thought she had a death wish for boldly insulting the Queen of Evil, and as she pushed up her massive jugs, Natsuno took out her scissors and slashed her shirt. While Kazuhito scolded her for acting like a barbarian, the pervy degenerate thanked her for cutting her. Before she left, Suzuma told Natsuno that there had been reports of a slasher around the area and asked her to be careful. However, Kazuhito wondered if she knew the scissor-wielding weirdo was more terrifying than any slasher, which earned him a new patchwork on his body. A few days later, Suzuma came to visit and suggested that Natsuno read some magazines to help her out of her slump. She told her the slasher was featured in the magazine and had already attacked 3 people. So Natsuno suggested she used herself as bait and promised to abuse her more as a reward if she managed to catch the culprit, which she gladly agreed to do. Later that day, while standing outside their building, Natsuno declared they would look for the slasher. The first place they went to was the bookstore, and there they learned that a girl had chased off the culprit using one of Akiyama's books since it was so thick. When they left the store, they ran into a salaryman who told them the slasher had attacked his coworker on his way home from a cafe. Natsuno asked what book the man had been reading, and he told her it was one of Akiyama's books. Later that day, while trying to avoid some muscleheads, they came across the blonde girl again, but Natsuno kept ignoring her. She kept walking until the girl's bodyguards blocked the way by forming a human pyramid. As she stood on them, Kazuhito realized she was Akizuki Maxi, an idol author. Natsuno told him that she had somehow learned her true identity and had been following her about like a lost puppy. Maxi admitted that she wanted to know what Natsuno was like, but was disappointed by what she found. Natsuno said she didn't have time for her and walked away, but Maxi teased Natsuno and said she was running because she knew she would never be as good as her. Annoyed, Natsuno pulled out her scissors and then challenged Maxi, but before the two could have a showdown, one of Maxi's bodyguards picked her up and carried her away. Later that evening, Kazuhito and Natsuno were discussing the facts they had gotten from their investigation when they heard a commotion. When they got there, they found the pet store owner cowering in fear with some of his hair cut off, and as Natsuno studied the crowd, she noticed a suspicious person and went after him. Kazuhito wondered if the Afro man had one of Akiyama's books when he sensed something in an alley and went to investigate. He saw one of the Deadly Sins novels and decided to read it until Natsuno returned, but realized too late that it was a trap. Kazuhito found himself tied up in his old apartment, and when he turned around, he saw his sister Madoka and wondered why she was there. Madoka kept talking to him like she knew he was her brother, which made him think she could hear him. Excitedly, he asked her questions, but soon realized she couldn't understand him and was just talking to him like one would a pet. Madoka then tried to feed him red curry but got up, saying she forgot to buy garnish and left to buy some, leaving Kazuhito alone. As he struggled to get loose, he noticed Natsuno lurking in the shadows like a wraith, which freaked him out. He was finally back at home, and here Natsuno asked why his sister kidnapped him. So he explained he'd like to know too. He then asked where she had been, to which she responded that she was chasing a suspicious person but lost him. Kazuhito called her a useless detective, but she showed in the book the person left behind, which made Kazuhito assume that whoever was behind the attacks held a grudge against Akiyama or was a fan of hers. While trying to piece things together, he remembered his sister had used one of the books to bait him, which made Natsuno ask if she might be connected to the attacks, but Kazuhito defended her, saying there had to be a reason behind her strange behavior. The next day, as they continued their investigations, they were approached by Suzuna, who told them that Akiyama's books were related to the case. Natsuno claimed she already knew that and told her to stop trying too hard to be useful. Before she left, she told them there was a rumor about a girl who cut up one of Natsuno's books in the park and described her as a small, short-haired girl, which matched Madoka's appearance. They soon went to the park and found pieces of the book. Madoka ran to them. She demanded Natsuno return Kazuhito to her, and the two got into an argument. Natsuno then asked Madoka about the book pieces they found, and she admitted she had burned all her brother's books. At home, Natsuno told Kazuhito that she was convinced Madoka was related to the slashing incidents, and explained that Madoka might have felt like Akiyama was trying to steal her brother away because he only ever spoke to her about books. She said Madoka might have thought that Akiyama was more important to him than she was, so it would explain why she grew to hate her. Natsuno told him that his death might have been the thing that broke her and pushed her to the brink. Despite the obvious facts, Kazuhito thought it was highly unlikely that his sister was the slasher, but said he'd get to the bottom of it and asked Natsuno to help him. As soon as she agreed to help him, Madoka burst through the window like Batman. Madoka picked him up and admitted that she put a tracker on him, causing Kazuhito to start freaking out. Natsuno then asked if she had come because she knew she was Akiyama Shinobu, which surprised Madoka. Natsuno then revealed that Kazuhito had died trying to save her. She said she would never forget his death, but would make sure she kept writing for his sake, since he was once one of her readers. Madoka tried to speak but was at a loss for words, so she took Kazuhito and jumped out the broken window before Natsuno could stop her. Later on, Kazuhito woke in a park where Madoka apologized to him, saying she knew he wasn't her brother. She explained that she had come to the city to find her brother, and since he loved Akiyama's books, she had set up that trap. When he got caught in the trap, she believed she had found him because only her bird-brained brother would fall for such an obvious trap. Madoka then got up and declared that she would finish what she started so her brother wouldn't be ashamed of her for running away. Just then, Natsuno arrived and challenged Madoka, who threw the case she had been carrying about in the air, causing it to transform into a huge ass knife. Natsuno brought out her scissors, and as they started fighting, Madoka turned the knife into a chainsaw. Their fight continued until Madoka's saw got stuck in a tree, which gave Natsuno the chance to attack and somehow cut her saw. Madoka wasn't about to be defeated and transformed the saw into a missile launcher and shot at Natsuno, who somehow managed to stop the missile with her scissors before cutting it into two. After the fight, the two girls walked home together. Natsuno asked about the slashing incident, but Madoka had no idea what she was talking about. Later that night, Kazuhito stood outside their apartment when Suzuna approached him, so he revealed he knew she could understand him. She asked how he knew, so he said he figured it out when she had come to talk to them about the slasher. He also told her that he knew she was the one who made up the slasher stories and even planted the salary man. Suzuna admitted that she did it to help Natsuno get out of her slump, but Kazuhito told her not to make a fool of Natsuno, saying that readers were supposed to believe in the authors. Suzuna argued that an author who couldn't write wasn't an author, while Kazuhito argued that Natsuno would get out of the slump without help. As they continued their argument, Natsuno had jumped down from the building and told Suzuna she knew she was responsible for the slasher incidents. She then produced a manuscript and threw it in the air, saying she had come out from her slump. While Suzuna rushed to pick them up, Kazuhito asked Natsuno why she didn't inform him she could write again. After Suzuna gathered the papers, Natsuno told her never to do something so stupid again, and threatened to be nice to her if she did. One morning, Kazuhito had gone to the bookstore to buy some books, and just as he was leaving, he was stopped by Yayoi, who wanted to play with him. When she was done tickling the life out of him, she bid him farewell, after which she revealed that she might leave the town soon. At home, he lay by Natsuno's feet reading a book, while she called him a disgusting pedo for cheating on her with a 10-year-old. He told her he was just worried since Yayoi had mentioned that she'd be leaving soon, which meant the store could close down. Natsuno revealed he could order the books online, but he said he had a special connection to the store. He explained that when he had first come to the city, he went to the store to buy a book. When he got there, he met an annoying old lady who had come to return a book harassing Sakura, so he stepped in. After the woman left, Sakura's father came out and tried to beat him up, but she stopped him just in time. He apologized for his behavior and gave him books for free. Some days later, Kazuhito had just walked into the bookstore when he heard Yaoi arguing with Sakura, but before he could react, she picked him up and ran out. Yaoi ran to the park, and there she told him that the store would close down. But she had an idea to save the store herself and pulled out a hat with the store's name on it and placed it on Kazuhito's head. While walking around, Kazuhito wanted to die of shame because everyone was taking pictures of him and the ridiculous hat. Two girls stopped them and asked to pet him, so Yaoi told them that he liked it when they rubbed his belly. The girls took pictures of him and posted it online, which Natsuno saw and got pissed at. They continued walking and came across the Afro Man, whom Yaoi called Moss Man, because she thought his hair resembled moss. Just before they left, they saw a blinding light, which was Maxie. Yaoi was drawn to her, so Maxie gave her some shades and posed with her. But when she noticed the sign on Kazuhito's head, she declared she would use her fame to promote the store. But Yaoi told her she didn't want her help and ran away. That evening, Yaoi looked very sad as she sat in the park, so Kazuhito tried to lead her home, but she remained seated. He tried to use snacks to tempt her, but that didn't work either. And that was when he noticed she was crying. He tried to comfort her, but she kept bawling her eyes out, and as he tried to figure out what to do next, Natsuno threw her scissors at him. After tormenting Kazuhito, she asked Yaoi what was wrong, and the little girl told her that she didn't want to go home because her sister was mad at her. Natsuno explained that sisters always fought, but that didn't mean they hated each other, so Yaoi asked if she was sure Sakura wouldn't hate her, so she promised that if she apologized, everything would be fine. They then took her back to the store, where Sakura revealed she was worried sick about her, which made Yaoi apologize for her actions. Natsuno asked why the store was closing down, but Sakura said it wasn't and asked where she had heard the news. Natsuno said Yaoi had told her, so Yaoi explained to her sister that she had heard their parents arguing, but Sakura assured her that it was just one of their normal arrangements, and at that moment, their father came crashing down the stairs. Yaoi then pointed out that it wasn't normal for their mother to always beat up their father, but Sakura said it was their way of showing love, which made Natsuno wonder if they were into some subtle version of 50 Shades of Grey. Some days later, Kazuhito was reading when Natsuno came to ask him to help her look for one of her bras, which surprised him because he had no idea plotless people use them. He then asked how he was supposed to help her, and she reminded the slow-brained idiot that he was a dog so he could sniff it out. Kazuhito jumped on her chest, but she panicked and slapped him so hard he flew it at the wall. She called him a dirty little dog and asked why he'd done that. So Kazuhito explained that he was just trying to get her scent so he could find her padded plots. She then allowed him, and as he sniffed her, Natsuno looked like she was enjoying the feeling more than she was supposed to. She finally came back to her senses and threw him against the wall again, calling him a sleazy scumbag who tried to take advantage of her and touched her. However, he told her there was nothing for him to grope, and he might as well have been holding onto a wall, which made Natsuno pull out her scissors. Suzumina, who arrived later, joined the two in their search, and while they checked the living room, she asked Natsuno what the bra looked like, so she described it. She was about to scold Kazuhito when she noticed he wasn't with them. She found him in the library reading a book and immediately took the book from him. She told him he had no right to be slacking off when his mistress was busy, which made him start complaining. Tired of listening to his continued ramblings, she threw her scissors at him, but he jumped back and hit a bookshelf. She told him it was a mistake, but he knew the crazy bitch was lying because her aim had been precise. Just then, a box fell on top of him, and when he looked inside, Natsuno became as red as a fire truck. Inside the box was a plot enlargement device, and the stupid dog told her that it was good not to give up hope, but as he tried to walk away, she stepped on his tail and asked what his last words were before opening her scissors. Since they couldn't find anything in the apartment, they went to check the gym. Suzuna then asked if she often forgot to put it back on since it wasn't that important to her, which made Natsuno tell her to test how strong the locker was. The sick woman happily obliged and slammed her face into the locker until her face molded into it. When she fell to the floor, Natsuno asked Kazuhito why he was in the women's locker room, but he didn't see anything wrong since he had no interest in 3D women, which made her call him a disgusting degenerate who used his appearance to spy on women. They kept arguing, causing everyone to stare at them. However, Suzuna enjoyed every second of the humiliation. While leaving the gym, they met the muscle heads, who said they had an exercise that would help grow one's chest, so Natsuno agreed to go with them. As they lifted weights, the leader claimed the exercise would help increase the chest muscles and help them buff up, which caused Natsuno to throw the weights at him. Meanwhile, Kazuhito was on his bed reading when his leg got caught in the bra Natsuno was looking for, and he remembered he had taken it in the middle of the night, because he needed something to cover up his body. When Natsuno and Suzuna returned, they found some clothes on the floor in the bedroom, making Suzuna wonder if there was a thief. Natsuno took a look at the scene and decided that only Kazuhito could give her an answer, but he was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Kazuhito was in town, wondering how he could get rid of the underwear before Natsuno found out he had taken it. As he walked, he met Yaoi, who took the underwear from his bag and tried to take him to the police, but he managed to grab it and ran off. Natsuno went to the bookstore to look for him, but Sakura told her he wasn't there. She left and kept looking for Kazuhito, but she sensed someone was following her and turned around, but she saw no one and continued walking. Meanwhile, Kazuhito was in the woods trying to bury the underwear when he heard someone singing. When he went to check it out, he saw a redhead maid, and as he watched her like a creep from the bushes, he suddenly sneezed. The woman turned red with embarrassment and took off the brushed part of her broom to reveal a knife. As he ran away from the knife-wielding woman, he ran into the street and nearly got isekai'd by Truck-kun, but was saved by Natsuno just in time. Natsuno put him down and pulled out her scissors to face off with the crazy woman, but she heard the sound of someone selling potatoes and left to buy some. Later on, as Natsuno and Kazuhito walked home, he lay down on the floor, so Natsuno asked why he was covered in dirt. Before he could answer, she noticed her underwear, so he tried to explain how it got into his bag, but she asked if he had seen the design. He didn't understand what she was saying, so she showed him the dog on the side. He then realized why she had said it was her favorite and tried to play it off, but she suddenly switched to bitch mode and tried to cut him with her scissors. As she chased after him, they didn't notice the person who'd stood watching them from afar. Sometime later, Natsuno took Kazuhito to a guest inn that had different weapons on display and was named the Holy Land of Blades. As he looked around, he noticed the books, and while looking at them, Madoka picked him up and thanked Natsuno for inviting her. They were taken to their room, and when Kazuhito mentioned that the room looked like it had been made for Natsuno, she admitted that the place belonged to her. Madoka checked the bedroom and noticed it had only one futon, so she asked if she should request another, but Natsuno suddenly got shy, which made Kazuhito wonder if she'd play for the other team. Annoyed, she pinned him to the wall with scissors and told Madoka she had booked a different room for her. Madoka thanked her and picked Kazuhito up on her way out, but Natsuno said she didn't need him in her room. Madoka argued that she hadn't spent time with him, and the two soon started arguing until Natsuno suggested they visit the hot spring together. In the spring, they met Sakura and Hami, who were there on a school trip, and when Natsuno noticed she was the only one whose chest was small, she suddenly felt shy and turned around. With her back turned to the others, she read a pocket-sized book and wondered what Kazuhito was doing. Later that evening, as they walked into the dining room, they found Suzuna and her cult of cultured freaks tied and hanging from the ceiling. While Natsuno scolded Suzuna, no one noticed the strange man in the hat watching them from the window as soon as the maid left. The next evening, while Natsuno sharpened her scissors, she told Suzuma to get out of the bath because she looked like she would pass out soon. But Suzuma said she was going to sit in the spring until she found ecstasy beyond pain. Just then, the door opened, and she looked hopeful until she noticed it was Maxi and went back to what she had been doing. Inside the inn, Kazuhito noticed all the employees moving like zombies, holding knives as they headed to the springs and ran to warn Natsuno. Just as he told her there was trouble, the zombie employees broke down the door and surrounded her. Maxi approached the employees and did her stupid shining pose, but they walked past her and attacked Natsuno. Kazuhito tried to get help from Suzuna, but the woman was too busy enjoying getting stepped on, so he turned to Maxi, but the self-absorbed airhead was in her delusional world. Kazuhito had no choice but to help Natsuno himself, and while he fought them off, he told Natsuno he would hold them off till she finished sharpening her scissors, and this made her joyful that he was fighting for her. Kazuhito managed to hold them off for a while, and just as he was about to get stabbed, Madoka showed up with a new knife and helped him. Natsuno soon finished sharpening her scissors, and the two girls fought them off together. As they fought, Natsuno noticed her book had fallen and was getting trampled upon, which pissed her off so much that she went all beast mode on them. Sometime later, Natsuno and Kazuhito had just gotten home from the bookstore, and the moment they stepped in, Kazuhito revealed something was wrong. Natsuno thought he was crazy because everything looked fine, but he insisted something was wrong, and when she asked what it was, he said they had an extra book. He ran to the library and returned with the book, and when Natsuno saw it, she pulled out the book Sakura had recommended to them. Kazuhito wondered why someone had broken it, just to leave a book behind, while Natsuno wondered why the alarm didn't go off. When she turned around, she saw that he had started reading the book and threw her scissors at him, so he told her that since they had no leads, reading the book was the only way to start. When Kazuhito finished reading, he turned to look at Natsuno, and she suddenly became attracted to him. He tried to jump on her, but she threw him in the trash can and left him there until she finished reading. She wanted to find out more about the author and decided to ask Suzuna, who refused, saying it was confidential information. Natsuno promised to cut her for every piece of information she could give, and the psycho happily agreed. From what she told them, the author was the daughter of the renowned author Osawa Shuzen. Since that was all they knew, Natsuno decided to go find out more from the address Suzuna had given to them. When they arrived, Kazuhito said he knew a shortcut, so they took the path through an abandoned warehouse. Natsuno accused him of luring her to a secluded place and called him a disgusting pig, and as he was defending himself, they were surrounded by people who tried to attack Natsuno, so she used Kazuhito as a dog cannon and fought them off. While Kazuhito scolded her, the man who had been following them revealed himself and Kazuhito recognized him as the author's father. Natsuno tied him up and began to question him, but he wasn't willing to cooperate, so she kicked him and asked all the questions she needed answers to. He then told her everything he knew as well as where to find his daughter. When they got to the school, they split up, with Kazuhito going to the library. There he removed a book and found the manuscript, and when he pulled it out, he heard someone call his name. He turned around and saw Hami, which made him wonder what she was doing there. Kazuhito remembered Hami's surname was Osawa and realized she was the author they were looking for. He tried to ask how she knew who he was, so he barked. She explained that Sakura once had told her of a dog that always came to buy books, and she just knew it was him. But she didn't believe it until she saw him take out the manuscript from where she hid it. She told him she was glad he was alive and said she had become an author, just like she had promised him she would, but apologized for not completing the manuscript as she had promised. Hemi said she had become an author through her father's help, but since Kazuhito died, she couldn't write anything and felt it was because she wasn't a real author. She told him that the only way to become a real author was to defeat the real author and surpass her, which was why she had invited Natsuno. Meanwhile, Natsuno, who was in Kazuhito's classroom, heard Hami's voice through the speakers, asking her to come to the roof. On the roof, Natsuno looked ready to kill Kazuhito as she accused him of being a two-timing traitor. She tried to attack him, but Hami stopped her, saying authors didn't use violence to settle things and asked her to settle things through a writing contest. They sat in the library face to face, while Hami explained that whoever finished a short story on 100 manuscript pages would be the winner. Kazuhito barked to signal the start of the contest, and as they wrote, Hami noticed Natsuno was faster, so she tried using different methods to distract Natsuno, but none of them worked, and she remained in the lead, so she asked what she thought of her novel. Natsuno told her it was a good book. Hami then pushed a button, which made the bookshelves turn and show mirrors, and as soon as Natsuno looked in the mirror, she grabbed her scissors and tried to stab herself, but she managed to resist. As she fought for control, Hami explained that she had scattered several keywords throughout her book, which subconsciously told the readers that their enemy was a red-eyed, black-haired girl with scissors, and they had to kill her. Hearing this made Kazuhito realize that was the reason he had jumped on Natsuno after reading the book and why all those people had attacked Natsuno before. Hami then told Kazuhito she would keep her promise by beating Natsuno, but Natsuno managed to resist the mind control. She then grabbed her pen with her mouth and continued writing, which enabled her to win. Afterwards, Hami congratulated her and tried to end it all with her pen, but Kazuhito took it from her and went to bring the manuscript to her. She didn't understand what he meant, so Natsuno explained that he wanted her to write. She then informed her that her father didn't use his influence to win her the new author award, saying she did that with her talent. But Hami argued that she wasn't a real author. Natsuno told her that as long as she had the desire to write, and as long as people were willing to read her books, she was an author. After listening to her, Hami asked Kazuhito if he would read her books if she published them, and to answer her question he barked. Natsuno knelt before her and told her she would love to read her manuscript when she finished, which surprised Hami, so she asked if Natsuno wasn't angry at her for what she did, but Natsuno assured her she was over it. Hami started crying and thanked her, after which she referred to her as Sensei, but Natsuno told her to call her Senpai instead. Some days after, Madoka told Natsuno she wanted to make curry to thank her for allowing her to stay with her while she took the high school entrance exams. While she was in the kitchen, Kazuhito went to look at what she was doing and became worried when he saw her slashing away with her new knife. He remembered all the different curry dishes she made for him in the past and wondered if this one would be edible when he smelled the curry. It was the first time she had made something that didn't smell like death, so he got excited and climbed up to see what she was doing. However, when he saw what was in the pot, he nearly died from shock because it was blue, but Natsuno reminded him that he had promised to eat it. He immediately went to the bookstore to avoid eating the blue curry when Maxi's bodyguards came into the store and bought all the books written by Akiyama Shinobu and Himehide Momiji. He wondered what they needed it for and followed them, but got distracted when he saw his landlady and the innkeeper pass, making him wonder how they were not the same person. He soon wandered into a park trying to find the bodyguards, but found the violent broom-wielding maid, who was once again singing. Not wanting to deal with her crazy behavior, he tried to leave but stepped on a stick, which drew her attention to him. When she noticed him, she got flustered and tried to attack him, but this time around, he was prepared and dodged all her attacks. She managed to corner him, and when she tried to strike, Natsuno stopped her, and the two started fighting. The redhead stepped back and told them she was a former agent with the codename Shadow Servant and introduced herself as Morev Sa-Chai. She told Natsuno not to take her lightly, and just as the two were about to clash again, they heard a helicopter approach. Inside it was the bimbo Maxi, who announced that she had bought all Natsuno and Momiji's books because she felt insulted being compared to them. Maxi pointed to a tall covered structure, and when her bodyguards unveiled it, Matsuno recognized it as the 9-story tower. Maxi landed on the tower and announced that she was challenging Natsuno and Momiji to a 9-story tower riding contest. Just then, Sachi charged at the tower, beat the bodyguards, cut their clothes to pieces, and told Maxi she wouldn't allow a useless airhead to insult her mistress. She said her mistress was the best author, and that an Aichiro Oda wannabe could only wish to be like her. Natsuno joined the two at the top, and just as they were about to face off, Maxi's bodyguard dragged her away. Days later, Suzuna came to see Natsuno, but she made sure she ignored her. As Natsuno sat working, Kazuhito asked Suzuna why she had come, so she explained that she wanted to talk to Natsuno about going public with her identity. She adds that if she took interviews and did shows like the other authors, it might push her to finish the last book in the Deadly Sin series. She then arranged the costumes she had brought with her, and after doing some weird editing techniques, she managed to put the costumes on Natsuno without her noticing. She does this with different outfits, and when she decided to put a swimsuit on her, Natsuno realized what she was doing and punished her before going back to work. After that, she said her second plan was to get Natsuno drunk to see if she would become nicer or meaner. Kazuhito told her it wouldn't be possible to make her drink, but Suzuna pulled another technique and managed to add the wine to Natsuna's mug. The two sat and watched as Natsuna drank from the cup, and almost immediately, she got up and approached Kazuhito. He got scared and expected her to punish him, but she picked him up and spoke to him nicely. When Suzuma tried to talk to her, she also spoke to her nicely, which she didn't like because she preferred it when Natsuno abused her. So she suggested she drink more of the alcohol because she hoped it would make her meaner, but she became nicer instead. Natsuno then told Suzuna that she loved her, causing Suzuna to shrivel up like a corpse and fall to the ground. She then picked up Kazuhito, who was uncomfortable with her attitude, so he told her that her pebbled plots were poking into his sides, expecting her to go crazy on him. However, this made her sensitive, so he apologized and told her that flat plots mattered. This made Natsuno think he was proposing to her, so she imagined their wedding and honeymoon, and they even had a conversation about what color to paint their baby's room. Kazuhito was so horrified he didn't know what to do, and when he thought it was over, she took him to the bedroom and tried to get down and dirty with him. As she pinned him down, she suddenly felt sick and vomited all over him. Sometime later, she came to her senses and told Kazuhito that he smelled like her grandma's 50-year-old socks and offered to give him a bath, which surprised him. After everything, she finally gave him a copy of the last book of the Deadly Sin series. If you've watched up to this point, let's confuse the fake fans by commenting "Rest in peace, Kazuhito." Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you guys in the next video.